Hi, this is Martin with My IELTS Tutor, India, and the Internet's premium online IELTS tutorial service. Be sure to follow us here on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram for tips and strategies for 8+ bands for your IELTS tests. Today I'm going to be talking about how to avoid essay mistakes so that you can score higher band scores. And these mistakes are pretty basic. Almost everyone starting off makes them. And so I want to go through these and talk about them. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to present some paragraphs for you. I'm going to ask you to read them and then try to spot the errors, okay? Now some will have a bit more errors than others, and some may have more errors than the ones I want to talk about. But these paragraphs are from essays that were written by actual students that I've had. So let's get started. Now, here we have a body paragraph. Now, I'll give you some time to read this and see if you can't spot the errors. And there are, at least one error there, so keep that in mind. Do try to spot the error. And when you spot the error, go ahead and write it down. We should be wrapping up now. You should probably have spot the error. So what is the error? What do you guys think it is? Now, if we take a look here, you can see that where it says, furthermore, in order to make people aware of the reasons behind obesity, government should come up with a plan of starting awareness drives. And then you see, I have it here in red. That's where the error is. And what do you say that type of error is? Okay, what would you call that type of error? Well, the error here is that there's just too many details. And so what the student here did is list a lot of examples, just a lot of examples to show what these are. And it's just not needed. So really, you don't need to list a lot of examples. The examples you should use should illustrate your point. That's what the examples are intended to do. You're not to list a group of examples, but use an example to show how your point supports your thesis. So, and another thing is that these don't add to what you're saying. A list of examples doesn't really contribute, doesn't add any value to what you're trying to say. So really you want to avoid using a list of examples. So what can you do instead? So what you can do is just elaborate further. That's all you need to do. And so if you look at this, what I've written here at the bottom of the slide, furthermore, in order to make people aware of the reasons behind obesity, government should come up with a plan of starting awareness drives. This will lead to awakening concern in people to avoid junk food and help people of all ages learn to make better choices. So rather than just give examples of what government can do in terms of awareness drives, say exactly what government can do in terms of these awareness drives. So, all right, now let's move on. Okay, now here's another body paragraph. We see an error here in red. For instance, on the BBC News channel, every week they have 1 hour programming on rising health issues and how to combat these by having qualified doctors with them. So, what's the problem here? What do you think the problem is? It talks about the BBC. What do you think what the problem is there? Is that a problem, really? Well, yes, it is, actually. You see, the examiners are not going to be able to verify whether that example is true or not. So that's the problem. They cannot verify whether an example is true. So what you need to do is you need to state that more as a general fact, and you can do it just like I have here. There are many television programs available which offer advice and education to healthy living and focus on diet and eating habits. Trying to use like a real life example like a television show, specific television show, or maybe a specific personality or celebrity or athlete. Make it more of a general fact, and then it'll be more believable, more understandable, and more acceptable too. So now let's move on. Now we have here another body paragraph, and we have here the problem. The problem here is written in red. So one study by Dr. Phillips in the UK notes that several ingredients enhance flavor to a point where the foods become so delicious. Young people come to the point of actually craving these foods. So what's the problem here? I'll give you a clue. It's really very similar to our previous error, where we had the example there of the BBC News. So the problem here really is that research cannot be verified. So you should not be citing research because, again, the examiners don't have time and they're not going to go and verify research. So, again, how can you do this? State it factually. For instance, junk foods are known to be full of sugar and salt. These two ingredients could have a dire effect on metabolism when taken in large quantities. For example, excess sugar translates as excess calories, which if not used are stored as fat and could easily lead to a lower metabolism. So, again, don't cite research. Don't mention research. State things as facts. Deal with facts. And if you do that, you will do good. Now, here's our next mistake. So we have this here. Furthermore, due to a lack of physical exercise and sedentary lifestyle, youngsters are facing chronic maladies. They are not aware of the importance of physical activities and their astonishing benefits. Well, say astonishing there, you're right. There is an error in terms of vocabulary, but that's not the error I'm referring to. Let's continue with this. Now, second sentence says, government organizations and educational institutions should deliver ample knowledge pertaining to particular activities. In addition, parents can also handle this prevailing situation. Now, aside of the use of astonishing here, which is incorrect, what's the problem? Is there a problem with this particular part of the paragraph? What do you think? Well, if you said that there's overgeneralization, you're correct, because there are two parts here where things are overgeneralized. And what I mean by this is that things are always happening. They're the extreme of something. So in our body paragraph, we have here, youngsters are facing chronic maladies, are facing. So it means they're always facing that. And then they are not aware of the importance. So this is another absolute. You always want to have some degree of probability. So rather than talking in absolutes, have a degree of probability. And this is where your modal verbs really come into play. And I really encourage you guys to study and learn them. These are your should, could, can, might, ought, and so forth. Those really indicate degrees of probability. Now, so how can we rewrite these phrases instead? So we can have youngsters may face chronic disease and they may not be fully aware of the importance. So that's how you do it. Now let's move on to the next one. Here we have an essay prompt. Okay. What this is now, what we're going to look at, examine, is an introduction. And so our essay prompt says, many parents give jobs to their children to do around the house in order to develop their characters and self-sufficiency. Discuss the idea and give your opinion. Well, we have here, presently, many families believe that by giving small household chores to their children will help them in building essential skills and a sense of responsibility. Due to the increasing completion in today's youth competition, should be competition. That's another error, but that's not the error we're talking about. Due to the increasing competition in today's youth, parents think it will be good for them to get started from their own house to develop the attributes for a better future. Moreover, it would be beneficial for children when they would have to travel to another place for study or job, as well as it will help them to be more tolerant of future obstacles and will be well trained for combating any hurdles. Well, this one, as an introduction, I'm not getting this. Sounds to me more like a body paragraph. And so several problems here. And there's two that you may have picked up that were vocabulary. Well, there was the completion one. Better future is another issue, but I'm not addressing those. But if you say there's too much background information, there's a lot of background information. Topic's really not clear. It's unclear what the topic is specifically. I do get a sense that it's about children doing chores, but writer believes that giving chores is the best way of developing character, but it really doesn't state that. And then there's no mention of supporting points, and this is a problem. So how can we correct this? Well, now, when we talk about an introduction here, how do we correct those errors, to write a good introduction? Well, what we have to do is to use the following format, which is basically, for short, TTP. And this is topic, thesis, points, like that. And you should follow this type of format. The first sentence is your topic. You're going to state your topic. You're going to paraphrase that from the essay prompt. Your second sentence will be your thesis, and you want to make a very clear thesis statement. And then the third sentence is you want to state your supporting points. Now, so if we take this into consideration, we can come up with a really good introduction that's 3 sentences long. You don't have to write a long introduction. Introductions are the easiest things to write for your essay. So just 3 sentences, pretty much. That's all you need to do for your introduction. So here is our sample. Globally, many parents are assigning tasks to their children to perform around the house in order to instill independence and a sense of responsibility. That's directly taken from the essay prompt. And so paraphrase. Now, this is a good step. This is a good step. That sounds like it's an opinion. Very clear opinion, too. This is a good step in a child's life and will help in him or her to become self-reliant and confident during childhood. So that's your thesis statement. And then the final sentence, there are many reasons for this, which include, 1, increasing their overall functioning, 2, instilling competency and responsibility, and 3, developing relationship skills. All right, so those are your points, the 3 points of this that can be discussed in the body paragraph. For this type of essay, you want to follow this format. Now, as I said, with our paragraph here, with our introduction here, this is good for a state and explain your opinion essay. That's the most basic essay. It's perfect for that. But what if you have an essay where you're talking about the advantages or 2 views or problems and solutions, and we'll talk about each of those. So what you can do is write an outline statement. And see, your outline statement, instead of writing points, you write an outline statement. And the outline statement states exactly how you're going to write the essay. So for examples here, the first one, the essay will discuss the reasons underlying each viewpoint and explain why assigning chores to children is a good idea. Okay, assuming the prompt is 2 views, It clearly states it's going to explain the reasons behind the two views. It does not want to say discuss the two views, but the reasons behind the two views. And then explain why, which one is good, which one is better, and you have to include that. And then for advantage and disadvantages, this essay will discuss both the benefits and drawbacks of assigning chores to children and explain why this is a good step for a child's development. Again, we have the benefits, which are the advantages, the drawbacks, and then a clear statement why it's better, what the next step is. Now, for problem and solution essays, you want to list the causes or the reasons as well as the solutions, okay? Now, this should be and I recommend that you do this in 2 sentences. The first sentence should be reasons or causes, okay? You want to make them separate because then it'd be easier to read. So for instance, you could have this. There are 3 primary causes or reasons to this and include, right? And then for your solutions, you follow a similar pattern. Fortunately, you can start off with fortunately. Fortunately, there are solutions and these include. Okay, so that's how you write a good introduction, for the essay, for the different types of essays as well. Now, here we have an essay prompt. It says here, today many people use the internet and smartphones to transfer money to friends, family, and businesses. Is this a positive or negative trend? So we have here our introduction. There are many today who make use of both the internet and smartphones to send money to friends, family, and businesses. The question is whether this is a positive or negative development. I believe it is a positive one, and there are several reasons for this. These include ease and convenience of transactions, okay, so as you can see, it has the 3 components. It restates the topic, it states a thesis, and it has the points. But there's a big, major problem there. What is that? Well, if you compare the topic sentence of the introduction here to the essay prompt, it's pretty much the same. It's just basically repeating points from the prompt. The second sentence, where the question is whether this is a positive or negative development, that's directly taken from the essay prompt. And you don't want to do that. You want to paraphrase. You need to paraphrase the topic. And so we can write this way. Online transactions made by consumers are quite common and conveniently done via smart devices such as mobile phones and computers. Right? That's a clear restatement of the topic from the essay prompt. While there are some concerns regarding this, ultimately this has been a very good trend among many people and businesses. This is because these transactions are easy and convenient and often instantaneous and remove the need to handle cash. So even still, it says we have a contrast here for a second sentence, which suggests negative development, and then we talk about the positive stuff, but ultimately this has been a very good trend, which suggests the positive development. And then in that whole rest of that sentence there, when it's talking about that good trend, is that's your thesis. So that's how you want to do this. That's how you handle this problem. Remember, you have to paraphrase. And paraphrasing is an important skill for essay writing. And you cannot get past band 7 if you cannot, in lexical resources, if you cannot successfully paraphrase. Now let's move on. Now, here we have a body paragraph. And now, if you read this, so there's one exception here where it says the children. That was my mistake. I do apologize for that. But everything else that shows there is pretty much an error. But why are they errors? Why are those red words and phrases errors? Why do you think? Well, the problem is that they're informal language. So they're informal words and expressions. So first of all, kids, that's informal. You would never see kids, the term kids, in an academic essay. Same thing with moms and dads. Freer time. Freer time is not even a proper expression. It may be a colloquial term from your original language. I mean, from your use of English in your language. I mean, in your country. But freer time, it's not even a native statement, but it could be used locally in where you live. The children is actually fine. They'll. Notice they'll. The THEY''L. That's considered informal. So contractions are informal. And fun things. Again, fun things is a vague phrase. Doesn't really mean anything. I don't understand really what fun things. I can think of a lot of fun things, but just using fun things alone doesn't really mean anything. On cloud nine, that's an idiom. We want to avoid idioms. So the problems here, like I said, is, we have informal language, formal words, phrases, expressions, contractions, and idioms. And then we're also using first and second person speech. For instance, she's gonna. That's slang. So we want to avoid first and second speech. For speech, we don't want to say I. For second person speech, we don't want to say you. So we want to avoid those. Now, so what can we do instead? Well, it's a matter of avoiding first and second person speech, avoiding contractions, idioms, and phrasal verbs. However, some phrasal verbs are used in writing, but not all. And then we definitely want to avoid using slang, colloquialisms, which are local phrases. So that's what we want to avoid. Now, here's our next one. This is a body paragraph. Spending childhood at diverse locations offers numerous benefits. Firstly, children are becoming more aware of different cultures. Secondly, young ones are not restricted only to the knowledge of their place of birth. Rather, they become more aware, tolerant by interacting with different people. This in turn allows them to enhance their communication skills by learning different languages. Thirdly, such children may have a higher immunity against different climates and environments. For instance, a child born on the plains but then lives in the mountains and later in a tropical region may become physically and mentally more developed and strong. Now, you probably picked up on some errors there, especially in vocabulary, but again, those are not the errors I'm concerned here with. So, have you any idea what the problem is? Now, if you noticed, firstly, secondly, thirdly, that's a problem there. Now, grammatically, they're correct, but you want to avoid mechanical use of linkers. This means that you're using, these happen all the time when we're talking about sequence, okay? So when we're talking about sequence, first, second, third, and so forth, that tends to be used almost automatically. You want to use different types of linkers. So you don't want to use the same type of linker sequentially. You should use other types of linkers, including linking phrases too. So for example, we can start with firstly. That's good. But then for the next one, we could use another factor or reason. And then we can end with, say, finally, or we can also use, then there is also.